be using one of the other sentiments from our free printable range on the website today. I'm using the Tim Holtz dies. So we've got this Bigz die here, which is the Décor frames, and we're also using this really detailed die here, which is the Doodle art die by Tim Holtz. The reason I've chosen two Tim Holtz dies, and I've done a kind of, you know, more grungy style mixed media make in the style of Tim Holtz, because we have a fantastic sale on at the minute. So go over to the Sizzix website, we have a sale on our Tim Holtz dies, so make sure you go and have a look. So let's get started. I'm just gonna start by cutting the Décor frame die, because I want to show you the two elements that you get. There's a circular frame, and then you also get this rectangular frame here. I've gone with the rectangular one today, but the circle one's also really nice. As it's a Bigz die, I'm going to be using some of our mixed media board here, because the Bigz dies can cut through it, which is great. Can cut through a few layers of this as well at one time, but we only need one today. I'm also going to be using our glue gun, which is just heating up now. I only need these tools for a sec, but just thought I'd get them out ready to show you these as well, because they're brilliant. So let's get started. I'm going to start by cutting the frames with the mixed media board here, and I've got the die here. When you layer up the machine when you're using a Bigz die, you don't need the multi-purpose platform, you only need the cutting plates. So using a Bigz die here, again, while I'm cutting, I'll just talk through some of the great things about a Bigz die. So you can cut multiple pieces of cardstock at once. Anything that you could cut with a set of good scissors, you can cut with a Bigz die. There we are. So it just makes it so much easier when you're mass producing projects or cutting through thick materials like I am now. So here we are. You can see how that's cut as well, just perfect cut around there, and that's through thick material. So we have this rectangular frame here, which I'm going to be using today. We also have this lovely circular frame that would also go really nicely on the front of this card, which is here, so it would look like this. Okay, so I'm going to put these to the side then now, and what I'm going to do, I've just got a little paintbrush and just a bit of black acrylic paint here. I'm going to make a bit of a mess on my craft mat today, but we like that when we're working with mixed media. So I'm just painting this black. It doesn't need to be really well covered, just because we're only painting this black to use a bit of gilding wax on it afterwards. Okay, so I painted that black, and this is why I have this tool here, which is the heat tool. I'm just going to dry that black acrylic. Look how quickly that's drying. Okay. And then that is ready to apply gilding wax to in just a little bit. So I'm going to move this out of the way for a sec. Next, we're going to cut the Doodle art die. So have a look at the detail in this die. Now this is a Thinlits die, so you can have that detail in there. It's really, really lovely. It's something that, you know, if you sat and you drew something like this, it would take you hours. But with this die, we're just going to put it through the machine, and it's going to cut out perfectly straight away. As it is such a detailed die, I've pre-cut this one, because it takes a lot of using either the die brush tool or the pokey tool after it, but that in itself is just a really nice relaxing thing to do. But I used the pokey tool, the die pick there, and this is the result that I got. So look at that. What a lovely, fantastic pattern. And then what I'll do is I'll stick this down here using just some of the express glue on the back. So you can just apply it. You can still kind of get away with just rubbing it across here, because you don't have to stick down every single last element, because we are going to be painting over this a little bit. So you're just applying it like this, and then any small bits you can just dab there. But again, that's something that takes a little bit of time, so I've pre-prepared one here. Now if I move this around in the light, you can see that that is this doodle art pattern stuck down black on black. So I've cut around the edges as well now, which you can only do once you've stuck it down to a surface. Because otherwise, you know, the spirals, if you cut through them, it's going to make the whole spiral kind of fall off. So once it's stuck down, you can then trim it and cut around the edges to the size that you want it to be. And the reason I've done this, I absolutely love doing this because it just shows how nice this pattern is. So I'm just putting a little bit of turquoise paint there. It's just acrylic paint and then a kind of greeny yellow. And what I'm doing is I'm just dabbing it thin, and then watch what happens as this is just an artist sponge, so a natural sponge. It's good to give the sponge a tiny bit of a spray, but not too much. Oh, I've got a bit on there then. Okay, and then what we do, we just dab it, and then you're just going to brush down this dye here. Okay, I've watered it down quite a bit there. I can go over it. So you don't want it to be too watered down. So these colours go really nicely together as you brush down this pattern. And you see the pattern come to life then as well, because all the raised bits are going to light up. Not light up, they won't be luminous. They'll get brighter. Okay. And that's it, it's your choice. You can lay it on thick, or you can do it a bit more subtle. Look at that yellow there. When the yellow goes on its own and then blends into the kind of turquoisey blue, it's just such a nice colour. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do for this. I'm also going to use my heat tool on this to just dry it, because the next part I'm going to be using a bit of ink. There we are, that's dry. Now I'll move this out of the way so I don't get any paint on anything. So I'm using some dye ink now, and I'm just going to lightly just go over some areas here just to add a little bit of purpley colour there, just because that adds to these two colours. And again, you can be either really subtle with it, or you can choose to, you know, make the purple really stand out. I love this colour scheme here. You'll probably see me using it on other makes, other Tim Holtz makes anyway. There we are. So for this, I'm using the multi-tool. I've got the blending head here. So the multi-tool is amazing. It comes with the craft knife head there, but you can get the blending heads and the sponges, and they just clip on. And the good thing about this is when you're blending, you can hold it then like a pen, rather than holding from the top like some blending tools and going from the top down where you can't really see what you're doing. This just allows you to hold it like a pen, and it just feels right in your hand. So I don't want to add any more to that. And I'm going to put my multi-tool down. Now, I will need to find, oh, I think I actually got it here. Yeah. So there's some silver gilding wax. I'm going to take a little piece of scrap card, because I don't want to get the gilding wax on these surfaces. So apply some down there. And for this one, I'm just going to use some silver. There we go, and that's why we painted it black earlier. It's just because that black shows through, and it gives a nice kind of distressed metal look, which is always nice in these kind of mixed media makes. There we are. Okay, so that's ready to use later. In fact, you know what? I'll show you now. So our printed sentiment, this time I've gone with the Best Wishes sentiment. And I'm going to glue that on there. So I've just cut it using the craft knife on the multi-tool. And I'm just going to glue that using the express glue to the back there. Sorry, to the front of the sentiment. So I cut it just wider than the frame. And the good thing about the frame is you can use the frame there to measure how big it needs to be. So this is one of the reasons why these dies are great, because they're perfect for framing sentiments. Because when the card's finished now, your eye is just drawn to this sentiment. Okay, now I've pre-cut some Ivory cardstock. This is from our Opulent set. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this, the Doodle art element, and I'm going to glue it down onto there. So I've cut it very slightly wider than this rectangle here, because I want to create a thin border that stands out around there. So I'm just going to apply a bit of express glue to the black. There we are. You guys can do this more carefully at home than I am now. And there we are. I'm just going to hold that and stick it down. I could have used a bit of the hot glue there, but I'm going to use that for something else later. So I'll turn this around, see what I can do. I've also cut a piece of black card the same size, because when we stick this down on our card base here, I'm going to stick this at an angle. So I've been doing this a lot recently. I just love that effect. It just creates a bit of liveliness to the card. Do you know what? I will use a little bit of hot glue on the back there, because the hot glue also creates a bit of dimension in the card, so it lifts up that layer, similarly to the way it lifts up with foam pads, but just not as much. So that I've stuck this down at an angle. Now I'm going to stick this straight so that you can see the black card kind of poking out at a tilted angle underneath this doodle art layer here. Okay, but first I have a little embellishment to add on. So I've cut out a piece of string here. So I've gone with a very, very kind of pale grey blue string, because I want it to stand out from the detail of the doodle art. Okay, so here's how I'm going to stick it on. I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue to the very centre, because when I measured it, it wrapped around twice perfectly. So I'm going to stick that in there. I could be using the glue gun kit for this to protect my fingers, and if I thought that I would be handling the glue gun more, I would be using all of the elements from that glue gun kit, because they just keep your hands safe. So I'm just wrapping this round here. Make sure it stays together. And then with any luck, that should come right back to the middle there. And then I can just press that in. The glue's not properly dry yet, but again, I'll just go over it. A little bit of hot glue there, just to keep that in place. There we go, and that adds a little bit of string, which makes it look like your framed sentiment is tied on. And it's lovely, that. Okay, and then with a bit of hot glue again, right in the centre, I'm just going to stick this on straight in the middle there. Trying not to get my mucky hands on the sentiment, because I don't want to ruin it. Okay, and then that is ready. Ooh. Almost ready, I should say. I'll just re-glue that down. We can use that glue actually to stick this on straight. So making sure to get it in the middle, make sure you've got that natural border around there, a straight border. And there we are. Okay. The glue isn't properly dry yet, so it might end up slipping down a little bit if I'm not careful. Brilliant. So there we are. We have this lovely Tim Holtz style best wishes card. The other sentiment was good luck. You can see the differences here. With this make here, I used a bit of gold gilding wax, but you can see it looks just as nice with the silver. And just look how that doodle art has really come to stand out when we've just highlighted the raised part, when it's stuck black on black. And you can do this loads of different ways. And the way that the doodle art works so well with this Décor frames piece is just brilliant. And that's one thing about I always say about Tim Holtz dies is it doesn't matter which die you're using, they could seem stylistically like they don't go together, but Tim Holtz style makes it so that the dies, they're really versatile and you can use them with each other. So you could choose, you know, just any two dies and they're going to go really nicely in any card. So make sure you go to the Sizzix website, have a look at our fantastic Tim Holtz discounts at the minute, and I hope to see you again.